Hey everyone, really nice to see so many people here today. So I'm quite excited for this. For those who have been watching us in the past week, we had a very big release week last week. We actually released five different updates to our product. There's a lot to digest, obviously. So I thought this week's webinar, we should focus on what are those five things that we released and sort of give you like a live demo of how they work and how you guys can access them and hopefully how you guys can get value from them. What I'll do is I'll quickly run through five slides, one slide for each release. I'll do this very quickly. I guess don't worry too much about the first five slides that I'm about to present. What I would like you more to focus on then is when I show you how to use it in the tool. Hopefully you get a value and understanding from that of like what the release was and what we're attempting to do and how we can help you in using SoterAI. So the first thing we're going to talk about is self-testing workflows. I'm going to share an example of that. For those who aren't making custom workflows yet, I will show you how to create a custom workflow and then this self-testing technology that we've built and implemented, which is really quite clever because it doesn't really need a human to test it. The AI itself tests to see, was your objective achieved, the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And if not, do we adjust the instructions at all and make it more reliable? Um, We've also added the ability to schedule workflows. So that's quite important if there's things that you want to be done on a regular basis. Perhaps something like every month you want to check if regulations have changed, or maybe daily you want to scan your email or you want to scan your Teams channel to see what have you missed or what do you need to act on. So you can create insights from this workflow that you can then act on so you don't have to read all the emails perhaps. The third thing I'll show you is actually how to create actions in the chat. So if you've used a system before where you've created actions, usually it takes you to another a screen. It's a form. So you've got to get out of the work that you're doing, go to this other screen and then create an action. What I'll show you is how you do that in the chat itself. So it just makes it a very fluid and natural way to do work. The unified action views is probably the smallest thing that we released last week, but I'll show you what that looks like, how you can see all your actions, but then how you can see every actions as well within a particular workspace. And then finally, the SoterAI Mobile App. So admittedly, it took us a very long time to release an app, and we haven't released an app to the App Store. There are some reasons for that. If you saw from my update, some of the reasons are that we want to create an app that is very, very up to date. If we change anything in SoterAI, that it's immediately visible and present also in the mobile app. It's part of our I guess, value and desire to be on the cutting edge at all times. But progressive web apps are accessed effectively through your phone's browser. But we'll show you how to set that up, how to get it onto your home screen, and how that'll look exactly like a normal app. So once you get it onto the home screen, you'll have no change in experience from a normal app. Okay, so what I'll do first is I'll show you how to create a custom workflow. So I'll just go into the workflow settings section. Now, for those who haven't created a custom workflow before, you can tell the SoterAI platform to do anything that you want. So you can really create your own workflows. What you do is you go into the My Workflows page and you click the Create a Workflow. Okay, so the workflow that I'm going to show you today, mostly because it's kind of quick as well, so I can quickly show you how this works. At the end of every webinar, I upload the webinar onto YouTube. And one of the things that is quite useful for YouTube is to add a thumbnail. So it's like a little picture that they see before they start playing the video. So what I'll do is I'll create a workflow that effectively creates this thumbnail for me. I obviously want it in my Soter branding. So what I have in data sources, and hopefully a lot of you are using data sources. If I just open that up, you'll see a whole bunch of files that I've put into data sources so that the AI can refer to these data sources. And one of those is our brand guidelines as well. So here I've got the brand guidelines and also a voice and tone guide as well. So what I want is that workflow to refer to this. And within the brand guidelines, Let's see if it opens it up for me. Is our logos, our colors, approved colors to use. This isn't a great experience. You probably have to download this, but um, on this page somewhere here, like our logos, as you can see, and then on one of these pages, it's our color scheme as well. So I want the AI to understand what colors to use, what text to use, all that sort of stuff while it's building me this image. So if I jump back into the workflow, um, it's building now an AI set of instructions for me, which is what will run that workflow in the future. It's going into data sources, understanding the colors, the topography. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. From my previous tests, it should take about 2 minutes. And then what it will do is it'll build me a set of instructions to run this workflow. Okay, it's extracting now the details. I think we're getting towards the end. Okay. It's now going to create me the workflow instructions. Okay, and it's created me a YouTube webinar thumbnail generator with a whole bunch of instructions. Now, I could read through those instructions and make sure it's all correct. I wouldn't need to because I'm really confident that it does a really good job on this. If I was to click create record, now that workflow would be available on my workflows page, along with all my other workflows that I've added from the library and maybe other custom ones that I've created before. But what I'm going to do is it also asks me to run a quick test. So I'm going to run a test now on this. And what the AI does is it basically now will run the workflow and make sure that the instructions are followed properly, that the instructions make sense, and most importantly, that we get to the desired outcome that we want to. It actually starts a whole new conversation in the background, so it's not, it's a completely fresh context. It does take the AI instructions and now will execute and test. Now, from my testing before, this test can take a couple of minutes. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so we confirmed that one of the steps I asked it to do was to ask for the webinar title and presenter name. So it's tested that for me and said, yes, that works properly. Now it's going to create an image and it's going to test if that image, adheres to our guidelines and everything like that. So while we let this run, I'm actually going to skip over to number 2, which is scheduling workflows. So you can schedule the custom workflows that you make, and you can, as I said, run them daily, weekly, monthly. And where you do that is in the instructions of this custom workflow, you scroll to the bottom and you can enable a schedule. So if I tick that, I can now run it hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. And if you want to get really advanced, you can go into this formula, but I don't think anyone's realistically going to do that. So let's say I want to run this daily, which wouldn't really make sense because I'm not doing this scheduled daily either. But I could do it daily, and I'll run it at 8 a.m. every morning. The thing to be aware of is because our business works across many different time zones, and our customers, more importantly, do as well, that we've done UTC for now. We're going to change that, but we're doing universal time. So if you want to run it in the morning and you're in, New York or LA or wherever, you just got to convert that into the time that you want. So yeah, it shouldn't be a big issue for you guys, but just to keep that in mind. Okay, that's how you would schedule something. But now the test has been run, and let's see what it says. So the trial result is the workflow is working great. It correctly asked for the webinar title and presenter name. This is the thumbnail that it created. I know my color branding. So yes, I also know that this is correct, but the AI has confirmed everything. If I really wanted to see how it all ran, I could open up the trial conversation as well. And this is how that custom workflow is going to run when you run it or when I run it. So the initial prompt. Then it asks me for the name of the title and the name of the presenter. I've done that, or it's actually simulated that I've done that. And then it created the image for me. So great. So no issues with this one. If I jump back into this custom workflow and if I hit create record, that is now created for me and I can go back into my workflows and I can run that. Some of you guys are building more complicated workflows where you might be bringing in multiple pieces of information or files or stuff like that, or the output might be more complex. And I've seen in about 20% of the time that the testing of the workflow will actually then prompt the AI to make some changes, I guess, to the instructions of the workflow. So I've seen it about 20% of the time, and usually with the more complex ones. Okay. Now, if I just jump back into my workflows, um, I now see that custom workflow that I created, and now I can run that, and I can give I'll run it after this webinar actually, and I will give the name of the webinar, and I'll give my name, and it will create me that thumbnail, and I'll put it onto YouTube, and you'll see it on YouTube when I send out the email in about an hour or two. So that's how you create a custom workflow, but more importantly, how you test a workflow, and then how do you schedule a workflow. Now, the third thing that we released is how do you create actions in the chat. So what I've done is I've prepared a workflow effectively. If you guys have seen me run this workflow before, what I'm doing is it's called a hazard identification report, where I upload an image and I give a little bit of detail that these are acetylene tanks. And what this workflow has done is it's created a hazard report assessment for me with a bunch of violations and also corrective actions. So what I want to do, like now that I have this report and I'm pretty happy and I've decided that there's a whole bunch of actions that I want to do, I don't want to go into another section of SoterAI to create an action. What I would do is I would go into actions, but I don't want to do that, right? So I'll just take one of these actions. Let's say this one. And I'll say assign this to my colleague. And Mike Getch is my colleague on the product team. Of course, I spelled that wrong. And I'll say due for Friday. Now, this is a very natural way of communicating with the platform. I don't need to go in another section. I don't need to create an action. I just say, hey, I want this done by Friday. Let's create an action for Mike. And what the system is going to do is going to create that action for Mike due on Friday. So we'll just give it 2 or 3 seconds for it to create that action. Okay, it's created an action. Due Friday, puts the right date in for me, sends Mike a notification as well. So yeah, an action has been created. So if we jump into the actions section, this is the 4th thing that we released in the week. We've just cleaned this up a little bit for you guys. We know that a lot of you have multiple workspaces. And before you were only able to see what actions you had in a specific workspace. And we realized, when you have multiple workspaces, that's not really the ideal behavior. So we created these 3 different tabs. So firstly, my actions in this workspace. You will see that I actually manage our entire release process in SoterAI. So what happens is Mike, every time we release something, my colleague Mike, he creates a record for me. So he creates an action for me actually, with a whole bunch of detail on what that release is. And then I run workflows within SoterAI to do those releases. So every LinkedIn update you see when we release, or every email that I send out to you, or every notification that you get in the SoterAI app, actually comes from these workflows that I run. And they run off these actions. If I look at all the actions in this workspace, we'll see action 16, which is the one that I just created for Mike. So if I open that up, That's the action. And you can even go to the actual chat here. So Mike, because he has access to the workspace as well, he could jump into the chat and he could see the whole context of why he has this action. If I get out of this now and I just go to the action section, so we've got my actions in this workspace. I've got all the actions in this workspace, and then I've got my actions across workspaces. So this last one is really helpful if you work across multiple workspaces. Okay, so they're the first four things that we released. And then the final one is the mobile app. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can get the instructions on how to install this mobile app. The first is to go to the help center, so help.soter.com. And within there, pretty easily, you'll find the section where we talk about the app. And then we have like a step-by-step process that you can use to follow and install the app on your phone. The other way to do it is to jump into workflows, jump into the library. And in the library, in the getting started section, is installing the SoterAI app onto your phone. So if I can now run this, or I can add it to my workspace, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to run it from here. And it's going to guide me through the instructions of how to set up this on my phone. Now, I'll give one piece of advice here, and it's a little bit of an oversight I think that we had. If you try to run this workflow on your phone and then follow the steps on your phone, it's actually very complicated because you've actually got to get out of this workflow to follow the instructions. So my advice to everyone would be run this workflow on your computer and have your phone there, and then follow the instruction, like execute the instructions on your phone, but follow it on your computer. So we'll just run through this quickly. If I click on this, for starters, it's going to give me that step-by-step guide that we talked about. So if I click there, you can follow the steps here. But if you want a slightly more interactive experience, let's follow the workflow. So the first thing I think it's going to ask me is, what phone do I have? So we're going to say iPhone. Okay. If you have already saved the SoterAI app as a shortcut on your home screen, what you need to do first is you need to delete that. So you need to get it off your phone. So delete it, make sure it's gone completely. And that's what this instruction wants you to confirm. So I will say that I've removed it. Okay. For doing it on an Android, make sure that you do it in Chrome, in the Chrome app. I don't know if you have other browsers on your Androids installed, but make sure you do it in Chrome. For iPhone, make sure you do it in a Safari. So I personally use Chrome as my browser on iPhone, but I would need to open Safari and need to follow these steps in Safari. It's just the way it is on an iPhone. Okay, it's open. What is next? Now, just as it goes to the next step, we have about 3 or 4 minutes of me talking left. So if anyone wants to ask any questions across the 5 things that we released, maybe throw them in the chat now and I'll look at it in about 3 minutes. Okay, step 2 is I go to the browser, I create ai.soter.com, I type in, I log in, I select my workspace as well. So typical sort of behavior when logging into SoterAI. And this is the thing to be careful of, or to be really aware of, guys. Whether it's on an Android or an iPhone, you're going to get this little banner and you need to click that button, open app. You need to click that button because it's going to change the way it looks. At the moment, before you click the button, it looks like this, which is wrong. This is the web version, effectively. It's not the app version. After you click it, it's going to look like this. So it's more simplified, much easier to use, much more responsive. It doesn't have all the functionality of the full platform, and you can see that in the help articles of what it can't do. For example, you can't edit documents or anything like that in the app version. But it's just designed to be like very easy to use and quick to use, and simple, I guess, is the word. Everything you do on the mobile version will then be available in the web version as well when you go back to your computer. So if you run some workflow, if you have some chat and you're doing it on your phone, and then you say, hey, now that I've done my stuff on my phone and now maybe I need to create a complex report, you can jump on your computer and then you can see the conversation here and you can continue your work. So no problem there. And then just the final instructions that we have is how to, once you get here, how to then create the app on your home screen, and basically end up with the icon on your iPhone or Android home screen. And then you can drag it wherever you want. And then every time you click that, it's going to open the app for you. So you don't have to worry about getting it approved now in the App Store if you're using a company phone, because it's not going through the App Store. You can just literally do it through your browser, save it to your phone, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that's the 5 things that we released in the last week. A very, very busy week and very, very proud of what the team did last week. And I'll just check if we have any questions. I see we have 2. Okay. The first question from Shana, can you assign actions to more than one person in your workspace? I don't think so. No, so I know you can't create like an action and then assign 2 people, but you could create 2 actions from the chat that I described. So if I just said create the action for Mike and Jess, who are both in that workspace, it would create 2 actions, one for Mike, one for Jess. I know that probably isn't the use case that you're looking at. You just might want one of 2 people to execute an action. Unfortunately, you can't do that. You can only assign it to individual people. And the second question I have open at the moment, what are the key highlights of using the mobile version for on-the-go use? So at the moment, if you try to use the app or you try to log into ai.soter.com from your browser and use the old version, right? It's not optimized for the screen of your mobile. You've probably noticed this. You have to scroll. Buttons aren't always displayed. There's probably too many buttons, too many things to click on, because you could have all the functionality of the full platform in there. And what we decided to do in designing the app was pull out a whole bunch of stuff. So you can't go into data sources, for example. The AI can go into data sources, but you as a user can't go into data sources on the app. You can't create a document. You can't view a document on the app. You can create a document, but you can't go into that canvas mode, on the right-hand side and see that document. You can't see risk intelligence and a couple of other things that you can't do as well. But what you can do is use the conversation. You can run a workflow. You can start a workflow. You can use the normal chat conversation mode that we have. But it's just more optimized for the home screen. So it's just the buttons are there. It's very easy to attach documents. You can even take photos in the app now. So you can be running a workflow and take photos or videos directly in the app. It's just more optimized for the phone. Less buttons, easier to use, quicker, and yeah, more optimized. If you want to see exactly what you can do and what you can't do, again, you'll find that section for the app in the help center, and it details very well. Like you can do this, you can't do this. Okay, pausing if anyone else has some extra questions. Thanks, Shana. Okay. As always, we keep this very short. But of course, if you need more information, you can always drop me the email after this. Or if you have the working relationship with Jess, who's our CSM, or you need to get in contact with Jess, who's the CSM who will support you, just let me know or let Jess know, and she'll take you through any of these points as you need. If anything's not clear, just reach out and we'll do our best to help you. And that is it. Thank you, everyone, for the support. Hope that was useful. And yeah, good luck. Thank you.